welcome to First and Filoni. This is Bowl Week, season two or week two, I guess. Here, I am Donovan and Filoni as always, and with me is Mr. Andrew Cooper himself. Andrew, how you doing, man?
What's going on, buddy?
All right, so we've had 1 week of bowls go down. Some pretty good games. Western Kentucky versus who was that? ODU was amazing. UTSA had a good game in the first half there. Any games stick out to you that you've watched so far, or probably maybe not as much because they were kind of lower games, but any games stick out to you?
Yeah, I watched a little bit of the um
Well, he's connecting back here. Just some other games that were pretty good that I watched as well. Um, the Miami App State game, even though it was pouring down rain, was was a really fun game to watch there. They it was just you had to be a diehard football fan to watch it because every time they got tackled, they were hit, they were fumbling, like they were sliding around. But those are the kind of games that are really fun. I think for the players as much as it is uh, for the fans to watch it, even though it was absolutely miserable out there. But yeah, the A&M or App State versus Miami of Ohio was a fun game. Florida A&M versus Howard was a fun game. But yeah, Andrew, which one did you say you really liked there?
Yeah, sorry about that. I really liked the I think it was the Texas Tech game, and maybe it was a blowout, but you
Yeah,
finally got to see, the actual Texas Tech team that we thought they could be all year.
right. That's the team that you were high on this year, and they played like they should have played in that game, like you just said, like they should have played all year. I was saying the App State Miami of Ohio and the rainstorm was fun, and then the Florida A&M and Howard game was fun as well. Um, and Boise was rocking UCLA to start. UCLA made a comeback, but all good games, man. I think we have some better ones coming up, and we'll talk about those here starting here shortly. But before we get into that, let's talk some transfer portal news. It is the season. Before we get started, with everything going on in transfer portal and coaching carousel, kind of heard this on a different podcast. Wanted to get your thoughts on it. Um, do you think bowl season is dying and this is now the season of the transfer portal, or do you think they'll kind of go hand in hand? We might just have a couple years of the transfer portal first, and we'll get back into where the bowl seasons actually matter.
I don't know. I think it's more or less being overshadowed by the transfer portal now because usually this is all you used to look forward to was the bowl season. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah.
Now I just feel like, everybody's primary focus is National Signing Day, which was today,
Yep.
and all the transfer portal stuff. So it's kind of taken away from some of the lower class bowls, I should say, but also great matchups. And it's like they're jumping to the
Yes.
New Year's Sixes.
It's been really fun matchups. I thought this season would be kind of a dud, but so far, all but like two of the games have been pretty close. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about that. Transfer portal news since we've talked last. Walter Nolan is committed to Ole Miss, defensive lineman, the number one transfer person. Um, Oregon gets another quarterback with Dante Moore. That kind of surprised me there. Now they got Dylan Gabriel and Dante Moore up there. Missouri's doing well, knocking it out of the park, getting offensive tackle. Georgia's making some news with another white wide receiver, London Humphreys, from Vanderbilt. Ole Miss seems to be doing well with on the defense. They're getting edge rushers, defensive tackles, defensive linemen. Um, have you seen any new commits that we haven't talked about yet that kind of surprised you or that you're looking forward to seeing in new uniform? Will
I
Howard to
was kind of,
USC, maybe?
yeah, I'm looking forward to looking forward to Rocket Sanders going to South Carolina. I think that
Yes.
was a big pickup for Shane Beamer. The other one was the Rayola kid decommitting from Georgia.
Yeah, so that's the signing day. We need to do an episode maybe just solely on signing day commits because Riola is now with Nebraska. I mean, does that change your mind about what Nebraska's going to be next year? Because they seem to be doing well.
I don't think it changes my mind. I think it's one of those things to where I think it's one of them things to where like now it's you still expect the unexpected. But with Matt Rule coming in with the NFL background, I think he's going to be a beneficiary to help those guys get ready for the NFL, being an NFL ex-NFL coach as well. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah, I mean Matt Rule, he's always better or he's always good in his third year, right? So he just had his first year. He did better than expected, I think. Second year looks like he's going to start it pretty well. And then third year, look for Nebraska to make some waves his third year, which will be Rayola's sophomore season. If all goes to plan, if he keeps bringing in the transfers and the recruiting classes like he can, and the money comes in like Nebraska has, watch out for Nebraska being back. And I think Nebraska being back is good for the sport as well. Um, One team that kind of surprised me, and we'll talk about the rankings of the college football transfers here going forward too. Syracuse is actually doing something in the transfer portal. They got McCord there. They got a couple edge rushers. Do you think Syracuse is going to be better next year, especially without Dino Babers? Got
Yeah,
a new coach coming in who seems to be all about toughness.
yeah. I think the first year, obviously, they are going to have their
Yeah,
bright spots. They're going to struggle, but I think year two it's going to pick up tremendously. I do like the coach and what he said. He's pretty much committed himself to the University of Syracuse until he's pretty much out the door. So he pretty much said that,
yeah.
let's say he goes and wins 3 seasons or 10 win seasons, and some seats come available for him to go. I mean, he's not leaving. He's already said he's committed.
Yeah, yeah, I liked what he said as well. I think that's good for the sport too. I think this is what we're going to start seeing. Maybe not this year or next year, but definitely in three years plus from now. Is some of these, I don't want to say lower level Power Five programs, but yes, lower level Power Five programs are going to start getting some good players just because they actually want to play for more than just 1 year and go to the NFL. So watch out for like the Syracuse, the Pitts, the UNCs, the NC States. I'm just thinking of SEC teams, the Kentuckies, the TCUs,
Mississippi State.
Mississippi State's to get some maybe not 5-star talent or old 5-star talent that hasn't panned out to come to the program. And I think that's great. I think it's good to spread the wealth. Not every kid wants to just play 1 year and go. Some kids actually want to play full time in college football, and I think Syracuse has a perfect coach for that. With that being said, let's look at the top 10 so far in the teams of the transfer portal. We have Colorado, no surprise there at number one. They have 16 commits, tied with Louisville at 16. But Colorado's number one. We got Ole Miss at number two, Louisville at number three, TCU at number four, South Carolina, Shane Beamer doing it again at number five, Texas Tech at number six, number seven, your boys down in Raleigh, North Carolina, NC State. Arizona State next at eight, Kentucky at nine, and Houston at 10. Any of those teams surprise you? Because I have a couple that kind of surprised me, and maybe what I
Yeah.
just said before we listed them off is already starting to happen.
So I'm shocked by the Louisville.
Yeah, Louisville. That's 2 years in a row that they've been
Yeah.
in the top five program in transfers.
Yeah. I'm definitely shocked by them. I'm really shocked by NC State, believe it or not.
Yeah, I am too. That's not Dorn's mo.
No, I think Dorn's one of those guys to me that I always thought was he recruits you, but he's going to stick with his recruits. But I guess now he's starting to see, you know, in order for him to compete with what's going on, he's got to dig deep.
Yeah, no, he has to, and it's not just competing with UNC because I think they can handle that on their own. Mac Brown hasn't really done anything special with recruiting in North Carolina that I've seen, but like to compete with. the Clemsons and where they want to get up to the top of the ACC. Clemson, Florida State, I guess Louisville now, and now NC State. I think NC State's a clear, in the top quarter or at least the top third of the ACC, especially if they keep getting these transfer guys. A couple other teams that kind of surprised me. Texas Tech is not a surprise. Joey McGuire, he is a great coach. Arizona State, this is the second year in a row that Arizona State's been in the top 10 or 20 in transfers. Watch for them. I know they were bad this year. They got a young head coach, offensive minded. Watch for them to be good. But then Mark Stoops at Kentucky. How much of this do you think is a big FU to Texas A&M for not pulling the trigger and hiring him over Elko?
Oh yeah, I think it's one of the ones where he's like, all right, he didn't want to pick me, so this is how I'm
Right.
going to play my game. I think he's finally got like the donors of Kentucky actually realizing in order for him to compete in the SEC, he's got to have money.
He's got a nice running back coming in, just like he had with Rice, or with Ray Davis. I mean, now he's got another, I think, a better and upgraded at quarterback from Leary because Leary just hasn't been the same since his injury. But with Brock Vandergriff coming in, Kentucky's doing something, man, and they're going to go at least 8-4 again next year. Um, but then another one that you called either last week or a couple weeks ago, Houston. Houston's being up there with the new head coach. They're number 10. They round out the top 10 there. Um, Houston's pulling out the money. That's the oil money school right there in Texas, though. So it'd be interesting to see what they do year two of the Big 12. Okay. And then the only other thing we'll talk on before we get to the bowl, since it is holiday, Christmas season, we'll have a shorter episode for everybody. Is your thoughts on the playoffs? And I know we're 2 weeks out. Practices just started this week for the playoffs. The lines really haven't changed. It seems Vegas seems to think that either the winner of the Alabama Michigan is going to win it all. I think you and I both said that that's probably the case as well. Has your thoughts changed since last week? Or you think it's going to be Bama, Texas, or are you leaning one way or the other? We're not going to give our official picks till next week, but
No, I think it's more or less leading to the Bama, Texas, honestly.
same.
You give Saban this much time to prepare. I mean,
It scares me.
it's hard. Yeah, it's hard for me to pick against that.
And he's been on the recruiting trail like crazy. He's gotten some 4 and 5 stars that are pretty nasty that have flipped their commits, and he seems to be getting some more transfers in. Another receiver coming in for Jalen Milroe next year. I think so as well. Michigan just got hit again today with another cheating scandal, um, a different one this time. Allegations of recruiting violations and or no, sorry, more new violations for the sign stealing scandal. He also got accused of another cheating scandal with the COVID recruiting rules against COVID. So at this point, I'm standing my ground on it. Michigan should not be in the college football playoff. They should be banned before they even get a chance for it. Now that I said my piece, um, is this the last year for Harbaugh because another scandal or another issue, another huge piece of evidence come out and another cheating scandal with recruiting now has come out? Do you think this is the end of the line for Harbaugh
With with Michigan,
with
I think
Michigan?
so.
Like, do you think he'll go to the NFL?
I don't know. I think if he has a productive bowl season, he's going
Yeah,
to the NFL. I don't think Michigan is going to boot him out. I think it's more or less if
no,
the NCAA stays on Michigan's heels, then
yep.
they'll be forced to make a decision. But to me, that's it's hard to say.
It really makes me mad that the NCAA are dragging their freaking heels on this and not wanting to make any kind of decision or anything like that. But then they're so stupid with the kids who are transferring for good reasons who can't play for just because they've transferred more than one time. Like they have to wait out. Like I think it's so dumb. They're picking and choosing their battles and they're picking the wrong ones. But we can kind of go on and on about that one, I suppose, as well.
Well, you know what they say about the NCAA? No clue at all.
Yeah, they really don't. Um, okay, so let's go ahead and get into our picks. We have 16 games to cover here. So we'll run through them fairly quickly and get you guys out hopefully 30 to 45-minute episode this week. But there's some really good games I think coming up. The spreads are all fairly close except for about four of them, I think. And this is, we're still not sure on transfer portal people who are going to be opting out. I know Jaden Daniels just opted out because he's going to the NFL, which is understandable. Drake May as well. Um, we'll start with UCF at Syracuse. It'll be this episode's coming out on Thursday, so that'll be tonight. Syracuse is favored by 3 points. Who do you got here?
I went with Syracuse.
I did as well. I think a new head coach, once one gets fired, new head coach kind of brings life to teams. And the way he's talking, I think this will bode well, even though he doesn't have his guys fully in there yet. Next one we have is Georgia Tech at UCF. UCF is favored by 4.5. I'm not sure what UCF team we're going to be getting because there's spots where they've looked awful, and then there's spots where they've just dominated. And Georgia Tech, I think, has been flying under the radar. A huge fan of Haynes King, huge fan of what the coach is doing down there. They actually seem like they might getting some traction down in Atlanta. I'm going Georgia Tech here for the upset.
Yeah, I went with Georgia Tech as well.
Next game here, Troy versus Duke. Troy's favored by 7.5. I've been high on Troy all year. They won't have Summerall. Summerall went to Tulane, their head coach. Duke won't have Elko. They won't have Leonard. I think they're on their third or fourth quarterback at this point. Who do you got on this one?
I went with Troy.
As did I. I think Troy's still underrated. I think as of right now, with injuries and transfers, they have the better squad. If this was beginning of the season, I would have said Duke by landslide, but next one, we got some action versus the Sun Belt, I believe. Arkansas State versus Northern Illinois. Arkansas State's favored by 3. I'm going with Northern Illinois here. Huge fan of action. Hoping some good things come to the action with the transfer portals as well. But we'll see here. I'm going Northern Illinois.
I went with Arkansas State in this one.
Anything? I guess Butch Davis. Is that why you're going there? Or?
Yeah, Butch Davis.
Okay, this one was probably the hardest one for me to pick because half their team has left. JMU versus Air Force. JMU is favored by 2 points. Um, who you got, man? It's been such a good story. Who do you got?
It's such a good story, but the only thing that scares me about this is Air Force has lost 5 or 6 in a row.
Yeah,
The other thing is JMU pretty much lost half their team.
right. And their coach.
Yeah. So I was kind of hoping you'd pick first because
Okay.
I want to get your
Well,
take on this.
I'm actually going JMU on this one. And it's
All
the
right,
same
good. I don't
reason
have to switch
why
my pick.
and it's the same reason why I picked Syracuse, new head coach. Hopefully, bring some new life to him. Play for your guys, try to fight for a spot, kind of deal. So I'm going JMU. Who you got?
I had JMU, but I thought you were gonna pick Air Force.
You going Air Force? Or you going JMU?
No, hell no. I'm going JMU.
That one was really tough for me because I really was a fan of Air Force, but then they just
That
lost,
one,
like you said, like
that
four.
one, that one in another game was pretty tough for me, but we'll get to that one eventually.
Yeah, I had high hopes for Air Force because they played really well, and then the injury bug just hit them, and it was just. I still think they have some pretty sweet helmets. Their lightning bolt on their helmet's pretty sweet though. Interested to see what Air Force does with those. Next thing we have Georgia State at Utah State. Utah State's favored by 2.5. I don't really know much about these teams. Sorry, Cole Swindell. I'm going Utah State.
I'm going with Georgia State. Give me the boys that play at the old Turner Field in downtown Atlanta.
I had a feeling you were going to pick them. That one should be a fun game though, because they're both pretty good offenses. I think. Um, Next game we have is South Alabama versus Eastern Michigan. South Alabama is favored by 17 points. I am not picking Eastern Michigan. I love Maction, but let me go with the boys of South Alabama. They convinced me when they beat OK State earlier this year.
Yeah, I'm going with the Jaguars as well.
They're a really fun team to watch too. And the last couple of years they've been pretty fun. They usually have a fast running back, a lot of screen plays, a lot of quick passes. Um, okay, next game here we have Utah versus Northwestern. Utah's favored by 6.5. Who do you got?
I went
Northwestern,
with Utah.
new team here. Yeah, I went with Utah as well. Defense wins. They might have lost a little bit on offense, but that defense is still stingy. Next game, Coastal Carolina at San Jose State in the Hawaii Bowl. 10.5 point favorites for San Jose State.
Give me San Jose State because they're in California and less travel time.
Exactly
Uh,
why I picked
I
San
think,
Jose State as well. And
yeah.
uh McCall being at NC State now, I don't know what Coastal's gonna do. They didn't do well without him this year. So next game, Bowling Green versus Minnesota. Minnesota's favored by 3.5. I'm going Minnesota solely because of Power Five. I don't trust Minnesota. Bowling Green's a pretty good team, but I'm going Minnesota, and I don't like that pick.
I went with Bowling Green. I went with the Falcons. Minnesota just, yeah, they're Power Five, but they didn't really show me a heck of a lot this year like I thought they would have.
Yeah, they PJ Fleck. I don't know what's going on with him, man, but he's just not. He hasn't been what I thought he would be up in Minnesota. Next game, Texas State versus Rice. Texas State is favored by 5.5 points. Who you got?
I'm going with Texas State.
And you know why you're going with Texas State? What's the main rule or one of the rules that we always follow here in college football?
Don't bet against teams that go with food.
Yeah, don't lose to food. You don't want to lose to food, even though Rice is actually pretty decent this year. I'm going Texas State as well. Next game, this one might be a fun game as well. And I'm a huge fan of Leipold down there. Kansas versus UNLV. Kansas favored by 12.5. I don't think it really matters what quarterback's in. They got three good ones, whether it's Daniels, Bean, or the third string. I can't even think of his name. So I'm going Kansas.
I went with Kansas as well. Leipold's still there, so like I said, it doesn't matter who's at quarterback with them. They've proven that they can win, and every time I bet against them, they always find a way to win.
Yeah. Does that surprise you that Leipold didn't get a job? Or we don't know if he got interviews, but does that surprise you he didn't get a bigger job? I think it surprises me a lot with
Yeah,
how
it
he's
surprises me a little
handled.
bit. I think if he produces again next year and another opportunity comes available, I think he's gone.
Yeah, I think he's had bad luck with the quarterback position the last 2 years. Because remember they're on that tear, and then Daniels got hurt last year, and then this year Daniels got hurt again. But Bean looked pretty serviceable. But then he got hurt. But beat Oklahoma, So I don't know. I thought he should have gotten at least a sniff at a job. Um, Next game, Virginia Tech versus Tulane. Virginia Tech's favored by 10.5. Um, I don't know which Tech team's going to show up, so I'm going Tulane with the big upset.
See, this is like the toughest game that I had to pick. I know Tech's without a couple of people in the secondary. Man, they played so good against UVA.
Yeah, but they look like dog shit versus Louisville.
Yeah, I know, but the only thing is really Fritz leaving Tulane. What did Tulane really lose with him?
Yeah, well, they lost Willie Fritz, but they got Summerall, who I think Summerall is a better coach from Troy.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's a good point. And I mean, it's transfer season for Tulane. A lot of them are in the transfer portal. I don't know how many for Tech are. It's a 10.5 point spread.
Uh,
Like that surprised me too.
yeah, I know because Tech can be one of those teams that's really good. You just don't know what Tech team you're getting.
Yeah. And I think Pry has earned himself at least 2 more years, especially after the first season he had.
Yeah. I think Tech's quarterback, isn't that Kenyon Drones?
Yeah. Is he still there or is he gonna go?
Yeah, last I heard he was there. I didn't know if he left or
Yeah.
not. He was a
I think
freshman.
I think he's staying too, but he's so wishy-washy though, because you don't know what you're gonna get.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Give
mean,
me two. Give me Tulane.
yeah,
The one thing that scares me is they lost in the conference championship.
yeah, but SMU's no joke, dude. SMU's good.
Give me Tulane.
And it came down to the last drive. Tulane was in the red zone and they went for it on fourth down and lost. So, okay, next game. We got three more left. UNC at or versus West Virginia. West Virginia is favored by 6.5. I already know who you're going to pick, and I'm going to go with you as well. Let me take the Mountaineers and the boys. Um, UNC
That's a
without
good
Drake
pick, my
May.
friend.
I don't know what UNC without Drake May are. I at least know Donaldson's
And
going to
they
be running the crap
lost,
out the ball.
and they lost Tez Walker to the draft. So I don't think he's playing.
I mean, he didn't play much this year. And when he did, he was amazing. It's stupid NCAA. I think Green and Donaldson are going to run for 100 yards each on them. Louisville versus USC. Louisville's favored by 7.5. Who you got?
I'm going with Louisville.
I never thought I would say it, but I am as well. I don't trust the defense at USC, and I don't know who's going to be the quarterback because they just lost a 5-star freshman, and Caleb Williams is definitely not playing. So I have no idea who's going to be the quarterback there. And then they lost like two
He
of
ought
their
to be. He
top
ought
five
to. He ought
receivers.
to be. He ought to be ashamed of himself. He's not going to the draft, is he?
Caleb Williams?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Somehow
Oh, he
everybody
is.
has him as the number one. So that blows my mind because he's the number one pick as a quarterback, and he's like unanimous number one. And I'm like, if I had the number one pick and I thought everybody else was going to pick Caleb Williams, I would trade out of it and get Drake May because I think Drake May is a better quarterback.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think Caleb Williams is a head case.
Yeah, and I don't know. I don't think he's that good. When he plays a good defense, look what happened for Notre Dame. How many interceptions did he throw? Four?
Yeah.
Three? Something like that against Notre Dame, who had a maybe a top 20 defense. I mean, they weren't like the greatest, but like they gave him a little bit of pressure and he folded. I don't know. I don't think he was that good. I was never really impressed by him, but what do I know? We never played, so Texas
Yeah.
A&M versus Oklahoma State. Texas A&M favored by 2. They got a ton in the portal. I I think Mike Gundy's going to pull this out. Mike Gundy gets a lifetime coaching job at Oklahoma State after the season he just had with nobody.
Yeah, I'm going with Gundy and the boys. That was a no-brainer to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think Elko do well, but he lost too many people. Okay, so last thing here before we go, I'm kind of spurring it on you last in the moment here. We got a ton of people still left in transfer portal, and we still talked about it, but there's 3 quarterbacks, really 4, but 3 of them that are kind of surprising that are still in there, and I kind of wanted to get your take on where you think they will go. Um, we got Cam Ward, DJ Uyunglele, and Malik Murphy. I left KJ Jefferson off because he keeps flip flopping between Arkansas, staying in Arkansas and going somewhere else. I also don't think KJ Jefferson should be a quarterback; he should go as a running back. But out of those 3, do you have any strong feelings? Cam Ward, where do you think he's going to go?
I would say either Ohio State or Florida State.
Yeah, right now I think the leaders are Ohio State and Miami. Um, but I think it's Ohio State, right? It has to be Ohio State. And would you take McCord or I think I would take Cam Ward over McCord, right? Going into it,
Oh yeah, I would.
I
Yeah,
think so too, right?
I
So
think
I think
that's
we're
the
on the same.
reason why he transferred.
Yeah, yeah, I think so as well. Cam Ward, I think you and I have talked about it. I think we both said Ohio State from the beginning, but we weren't 100% sure. Next, DJ Uyunglele. He had a really good season. I know you don't like to think that, but he really did if you look at his stats and how he played at Oregon State. The 2 leading candidates that I saw in the rumor mill are Florida State and Mississippi State. Um, either one of those, do you think he'll go? I think Florida State's the call for him, but I don't know. I'm not sold
I
on
don't
him
know, man.
either.
I think
Maybe
Mississippi
TCU.
State. I would say Mississippi State over Florida State for him.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think he should go to Mississippi State to play that SEC football. But I mean, who knows where Florida State's going to be next year? I bet you they're going to fight to get into the SEC. So, and then finally Malik Murphy. had some ups and downs when he came in for Quinn Ewers, but I think he was pretty solid. Obviously, getting pushed out with Quinn Ewers coming back, and Arch Manning not transferring. He wants to stay with Sark to continue to develop, which I think is a smart move. Um, it looks like Baylor and Duke and TCU, I think, are on the list for him. Um, where do you think he's going
I
to
can
end up?
I can see him. I can see him going to Duke with Manny Diaz.
See, I think so as well. I think he can go in, start right away, and kind of play higher level football than he could at Baylor. Because I think Duke is actually going to be starting to be recognized as an actual football school versus a basketball school that plays football. All right. Well, that's it for us this week. We got a few more games next week. Next week we'll also go over the playoff playoff championship, to kind of go over the bowl manias as of right now. We have a couple people at 7-2. Um, Adrian, I know, is one of them. Adrian and Libby, and then Team Washington Kendra. I'm not sure who that is, but shout out to you. 7-2. Um, and then a bunch of people at 6-3, including me and you, Kyle, Elise, and then a couple of people at 5-4. So we're still early on. 6-3. A couple of those games really killed me, man. Um, don't forget to make your picks on the app if you haven't already. Um, and we'll start from the 28th next week, and we'll see you then.